Tonight, PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar assures Nigerians that he's capable of effectively tackling corruption if elected, insists on sale of NNPC. President Buhari woos voters in Kogi State, pledges to set up the anti-corruption fight and ensure revival of Ajokuta steel rolling mill. Acting Inspector General of Police Muhammad Adamu takes charge, reads riot acts to petitions and others over threats to Nigeria's peace and security. And UK Prime Minister Theresa May survives no confidence vote in Parliament with 325 votes in her favour and 306 against.
On business news tonight, ProShare and Olori Cosmetics emerged top among 360 African countries in 2019 edition of Companies to Inspire Africa report by the London Stock Exchange.
And in sports news, MFM Football Club record their first win of the 2019 MPFL season with a 2-0 win over Quarry United FC.
And from Abuja, Vice President Oshibajo absolves President Buhari of complicity in the planned trial of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, insists the president respects institutions.
The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, is giving Nigerians the assurance that his team has the capacity to tackle corruption in the country if elected. Now, he was speaking at a conference with the business community in Lagos with the theme, Getting Nigeria's Economy Working, a Pragmatic Approach. The candidate and his running mate, Pt.1, spoke on how they'll address different issues, including selling the NNPC, issues in the oil and gas sector, as well as infrastructure and education.
If you make it mandatory and compulsory for every public official who has to issue an approval, a license, or anything to the private sector or anybody for that matter, will lose his job, and you have an efficient monitoring system, you would have dealt a blow to corruption. The long and short story is that I am committed to privatizing NNPC. I said it. I swear, even if they are going to kill me, I will do it. At the end of the day, privatizing NNPC is going to be to our own advantage because you are not going to lose anything. As I have said openly, I will reduce the size of the federal government completely. And make sure that I hand over responsibilities to the various components, whether they are states, whether they are regions, whether they are zones, whatever people want to call them, that's their own business. And I'm also not going to enrich members of my family, but my friends. Are my friends not entitled to be enriched? As long as there is no element of corruption there. And there was none during our time when we privatized the banks, when we privatized institutions of the private sector. I have not heard a story of anybody coming to say either the president or myself took money to do that. So the intention, of course, of deregulating the economy and giving the private sector the responsibility of driving the economy, of course, is to bring about prosperity to members of the public.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari is asking the Nigerian voters to consider the achievements of his party in reaching a decision on who to vote for in February. The president, who addressed supporters of the All Progressives Congress in Lokoja, Kogi State capital, says not voting the APC will be a mistake. The visit to the North Central State is part of the president's campaign to canvass for votes ahead of the elections scheduled to begin in February. Our correspondent Ibrahim Adra reports.
I am very impressed at this very short notice. You turned up for so many hours, standing in the sun to see us and to listen to us. I assure you that I am very aware of your appreciation of the efforts for what we are able to deliver since we came in 19th of May 2015. I have challenged anybody in Nigeria to check in Europe, America, and Asia that Nigeria was producing 2.1 million barrels a day at the cost of average $100 per barrel. So Nigeria was earning 2.1 million times 100 times 16 years. Where was that money? You know the roads, the railway was killed, there was no power. They said they spent $16 billion, not naira, on power. Why is the power? I am warning you, don't make any mistake of choosing any PDP candidate. What they will try to do is to cover the theft they have committed against the nation. I assure you, I will follow the system. Anybody that was found responsible, we will get him, take away the money from him, put it in the treasury. With what we have, we are making the roads, we are doing the railways, we are going to bring power, and we are going to secure this country so that we will be able to manage it. Please reflect on what we have done with what we have compared to what they had and the damage they have done to the country.
The Acting Inspector General of Police, Mr. Muhammad Adamu, is already stamping his authority, reading the Riot Act to politicians and all persons who may want to threaten the peace and security of Nigeria. The police chief says the force will not hesitate to identify, isolate and bring to justice any person or group of persons who attempt to threaten the nation's democracy. Mr. Adamu, who was speaking in Abuja, offered an assurance that the police will guarantee a peaceful and secure atmosphere for all citizens to freely exercise their electoral rights.
I'm not unaware of the possible security threat that some misguided political actors and their followers may attempt to pose during the general election. To such elements, I must sound a note of warning that as a nation, we have had enough of electoral violence. Hence, while the Nigeria Police under my watch shall work with the Independent National Electoral Commission and sister security agencies in guaranteeing a peaceful and secure space for all political parties and the citizens to freely exercise their electoral rights, we shall not hesitate to identify, isolate, and bring to deserved justice any person or groups that attempt to threaten our sacred democratic order. To the unrepentant felons that may want to put our common will to test, the message is being relayed here, loud and clear, that in securing the law-abiding citizens during the elections, we shall not hesitate to deploy our potent assets to deal firmly and decisively with electoral deviants.
Meanwhile, police authorities also have their own caution as the Police Service Commission has warned against illegal transfers of police commissioners, especially as the elections draw near. The Commissioner of Police Service, Mrs. Najatu Muhammad, disclosed this while speaking to journalists at the police headquarters in Jigawa State. According to her, every transfer done by the police without the endorsement of the Commission is null and void.
In the past was that the former Commission abdicated their responsibilities and handed it over to the IG. It wasn't the it has never been the responsibility of the IG to make transfers. But earlier on, before we started this, transfers were just made by the IG without even being endorsed by the Police Service Commission. So what we are saying is that we want people to be aware that there is some kind of illegality that had been going on, and we intend to stop that illegality.
The newly sworn-in Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, has begun his tenure on a stern note, reading the riot act to politicians ahead of the general elections and criminals across the country. However, all eyes will be on the police boss to see how he can rebrand the force to meet the yearnings of the people. In this report, our correspondent, Oluwa Shonibare, examines the road ahead for the new Inspector General.
And not hesitate to identify, isolate, and bring to deserved justice any person or groups that attempt to threaten our sacred democratic order.
There's a new sheriff in town, and he's already spelling out the rules of engagement. Who can blame him? Mohammed Adamu has taken over as the new Inspector General of Police at a time the nation's democracy and security are going through what many say is a test.
Thank you.
So what should be expected from the new helmsman? His proactiveness on the job will certainly be in the spotlight. For a force which had its fair share of controversies in 2018, notably brutality allegations against the former Special Anti-Robbery Squad and criticism of his predecessor for what was seen as lukewarm attitude over herdsmen farmers' crisis in some states and his face-off with the Senate.
I don't think that any IG has ever refused to appear before the Senate since we've been practicing democracy. And I don't think that this has ever happened before. But we must all know these actions are in danger to our democracy.
The new IGP certainly has to grab the bull by the horns if he intends to reduce, to a large extent, the crimes plaguing the nation. So going forward, will the elements of professionalism be seen in the police officers under the watch of Mohammed Adamu? Ordinarily, this should not be seen as a tall order. But when looking at the number of personnel available to secure the nation, it may appear to be Herculean. But all these issues are probably on the list of the police boss as things to address. For now, his attention is on the general elections, and the outcome will be either daggers drawn or a standing ovation. Oluwa Shonibare, Channels Television News.
And speaking about preparations for the elections, the European Union has pledged to support the Independent National Electoral Commission's efforts to conduct a peaceful election. The head of the European delegation to Nigeria, Ambassador Kessel Carlson, made the pledge in Abuja at the official launch of an election monitoring and support center. He says Nigeria remains an important country to the European Union and that the center will provide INEC the tools to follow up implementation of its operational and logistics plan nationwide.
Our only real mission here is for Nigeria to succeed in having free, fair, credible, transparent and peaceful elections. We have reiterated on numerous occasions, and I think we should continue to stress that before the media and before you, that evidently the international community in general, and certainly the missions that you see before you today, we are not here to support any particular candidate or any particular party or any particular ideology even. What we are here to do is, as true partners of Nigeria, to support your efforts in seeing a continuation of the consolidation of democracy. Now, Nigeria showed to her own population in 2015, but beyond that to Africa and to the entire world, that the outcome of a democratic election can prevail. And that's a very powerful message in terms of unity, in terms of opportunities, economic and opportunities for the general population, of course, of Nigeria.
In part 2, after the break, more on the police and professionalism. I'll be joined by a former commissioner of police, Emmanuel Ojukwu. Plus, religious leaders caution politicians against heating up the polity in a desperate win to win elections. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.